Good day, this is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you from the gorgeous Mallet Park in Tehran, Iran on July 11th, 2026 for Reason to Resist. What you just saw was some footage that I shot from the train from Mashhad to Tehran this morning at about 7 a.m. And you may have been able to make out in the distance in one of these clips I just shared with you some camels gallivanting in the open desert. An unusual sight for somebody like myself who was born and raised in Canada. In any case, we arrived here this morning at around 11 a.m. after having left Mashhad last night on that same train at around 10 p.m. So it was around a 13-hour train ride. And I will be heading out to a destination I'm not inclined to disclose at the moment on my way back to Canada. I'll be heading out later tonight, departing Iran, and for the time being I anticipate that this will be my final report from Iran for this particular trip, unless something that really obliges me to do another report happens between now and my departure time this evening. I'm going to share with you at the end of this report, which is going to focus first and foremost on the most recent developments in Trump's insane and escalating war of aggression on Iran. I'm going to share with you after that and some other issues of a big picture nature that I want to comment upon. The last footage that I shot when I was in Mashhad, two things in particular. We were afforded the opportunity to visit the former home of Imam Ali Khamenei, whose body was laid to rest on July 9th in the Imam Reza shrine in Mashhad. He lived in this home for about 10 years, right up until the time of the Islamic Revolution in 1979. And in this brief video, which is a tour of the home that he lived in at the time, you'll hear about his humble life prior to becoming the supreme leader of Iran, and also how he was surveyed by the Savak, the vicious intelligence arm of the Shah's regime. And the other thing I'm going to show you is that yesterday, for the first time, I actually went into the interior of the Imam Reza shrine and saw the tomb of the 8th Imam of the Shia faith. And that was quite a powerful experience, seeing in particular how the Shia faithful gathered around the tomb responded to it, how they were overcome with emotion in that room. And just adjacent to where the tomb is situated, they have laid to rest Imam Khamenei. Now, we were not able to actually go into the room where his tomb is situated, but we stood outside it, and you'll see not only that it was very close to the tomb of Imam Reza, just a short walk away, dozens of meters at most, but also that this is an absolutely stunning work of architecture, the Imam Reza shrine. The entire complex really, but particularly the building in which these tombs are held or situated. So I'll show you that at the end of this video, and in the interim, let me get into the most recent developments in this insane war of aggression. But before I begin, let me remind you that if you're not already a subscriber to Reason to Resist, please do become one. Help us to expand the reach of our unapologetic, on-the-ground resistance journalism. And if you find this video to be informative, please do like and share it. So, with that, the latest news emanating from Washington via the ever-reliable mouthpiece of Donald Trump, Barak Ravid of Axios, is that the Trump regime has given the Islamic Republic until today, Saturday, July 11th, to renounce control over the Strait of Hormuz and to pledge that it will not attack any vessels at all, and that the transit through the strait will be free and open without any control by the Islamic Republic. And on top of all of that, they have to say in some suitably abject language, the Iranians, that they made a mistake in attacking these vessels that transited through the Strait of Hormuz without their permission. And this article, of course, is based entirely, as are virtually all of the articles that David has written, the former Israeli intelligence agent, about this war, on unnamed U.S. officials. Let me tell you, folks, if you still believe in articles that are based on unnamed U.S. officials, particularly those written by Barak David, I think you need to go back to elementary school and learn the basics of a healthy dose of skepticism. I mean, seriously, there is no reason whatsoever to attach any weight to anything that Barak David has to say about this war, Donald Trump, Israel, geopolitics generally, particularly when it is based upon unnamed U.S. officials or unnamed Israeli officials or unnamed officials from some vassal of Washington. Nonetheless, I do want to point out one other thing about this article, that one of the unnamed officials said that there will be harsh consequences if Iran doesn't comply with the deal. And by the way, compared to some of the genocidal language that Trump himself has used, that is a rather mild threat. And the other thing is that David says in this article that after Iran this week attacked vessels in the Strait of Hormuz, that the United States struck Iran twice. There were 2 rounds of bombing. Nowhere in his article does he actually mention that the Iranians hit back. He doesn't even say that they attempted, let alone actually did, strike U.S. military bases in the region. Now, why is this omission journalistically significant? Because by leaving that information out, it conveys the impression that the Iranians did nothing, that they just sat there passively while they got pounded in 2 rounds of bombing. And that will mislead people about the true nature of the struggle that is happening in the Strait of Hormuz and the capabilities of the Iranians to hit back and their determination to do so. It will cause people to misjudge the readership of Axios, what is actually going on here. And I should also add that the other corporate media outlets around the West faithfully reproduce whatever Barak David, any so-called breaking story, any bombshell that this clown puts out based on these ubiquitous unnamed U.S. officials. They repeat it all over the Western corporate media, so it becomes the dominant story, even though it has zero credibility whatsoever. So this is extremely misleading reporting. It is at best journalistic malpractice, and it only drives home the point that Barak David, he is no journalist. That man is at best a scribe for the Trump regime, an uncritical scribe, and at worst an agent of the genocidal, child-murdering Israeli military. Now, another piece of significant news is that the Europeans are saying that they will consider some form of transit fee or service fee that will be payable to Iran under some as yet to be devised regulatory regime for the Strait of Hormuz. Now, this on the surface seems almost as though the door is opening a crack for the Iranians to achieve their objective, at least from the perspective of the Europeans. And let's be clear, the Europeans are in serious trouble here. They are far more vulnerable to a sustained closure of the Strait of Hormuz than the United States, because they have far less oil and gas of their own. And they should be desperate to be getting the Strait of Hormuz opened. And if they were acting in the interests of their people, they would readily pay some reasonable fee to get the ships out. But so far, they fought that tooth and nail. Now, as I say, this on the surface appears as though there may be some room for compromise. But here's the kicker, folks. They will only agree to it, if they agree to it at all, if the payment of the fee is voluntary. So the first question you should be asking yourself is, if you're not actually obliged to pay this fee to Iran in order to get your vessels through the Strait of Hormuz, why the hell would you pay it? Who is actually going to end up paying this fee? I mean, maybe some people as an act of goodwill, some companies, for reasons that are unknown to me. This is not in the nature of what for-profit companies do, nor is it in the nature of what Western governments do, who have demonstrated over decades implacable hostility towards the Islamic Republic of Iran. But let's suppose that some shipping companies or governments do actually pay a fee voluntarily. The amount of money that ultimately will be paid to Iran will be negligible. It will not even be remotely sufficient to compensate Iran for the devastating forms of warfare that the West has waged on it for decades. economic warfare, military aggression, cyber warfare, lawfare, for example, at the United Nations Security Council. Iran, I think at this stage, can fairly be said to be owed by way of just reparations somewhere in the range of trillions of dollars. So this voluntary scheme is a fraud. And let me tell you what I think is going on here. There may be people who get all excited about this and say, whoa, the Europeans are going to actually do a deal that will satisfy the Iranians. No, what this is the Europeans, in their dastardly, cowardly, sneaky, slimy, con man sort of way, coming up with some scheme which they know is not going to result in significant compensation ever being paid to Iran, but which they believe might be a face-saving off-ramp for the so-called Iranian regime to give up on its demand that there be fees paid for transiting the Strait of Hormuz. In any case, I think this scheme, anything involving purely voluntary payments, will be rejected out of hand by the Iranians, and the existential struggle for the Strait of Hormuz will continue, and it will ultimately be lost by the West, because there is no military solution to Iran's control of the Strait of Hormuz for reasons that I've talked about at length on this program. I'm not going to repeat them now. And the only real question is, how much damage is Trump and his vassals in the West and his Arab autocratic vassals, the dictators in the region who serve him, how much damage are they going to do to their own economies and to the global economy before they finally pay the piper? That's the only real question here. And I'm not really interested, nor should you be, in those people complaining that any compulsory fees payable to Iran would violate international law. First of all, as I've covered, that is debatable. But secondly, if you are perpetrating grotesque violations of international law, including against Iran itself, then you have forfeited any moral authority or right to invoke international law. And in fact, the West has taken a total wrecking ball to it. It is virtually now devoid of credibility and is having no meaningful impact on the conduct of Western states or their proxies around the world. So to hell with you and your international law. The only people in whose mouth I attach weight, or whose pronouncements about international law I regard as weighty and worthy of consideration, are those who actually make a good faith effort to comply with it. And that certainly doesn't include any Western government. Now, moving on, I want to talk about some larger picture issues. Actually, before I do that, for what it's worth, my prediction is there's going to be more warfare. I don't know if there's going to be a quote-unquote harsh response when this day inevitably goes by without the Iranian government complying with the demands that were communicated to it through Barak Ravid and Axios by unnamed U.S. officials. I don't think they're going to comply. I'm virtually certain of it. And therefore, there's going to be another moment of truth for the Trump regime. What is it going to do? Probably it will opt for violence. How much remains to be seen. But this is going to go on for some time. And unless and until, and I may sound like a broken record here, the U.S. economy is screaming in pain, and the Iranian government has inflicted real deterrence on the United States. Will there be any hope of a permanent end to this decades-long depraved war that the West has been waging on the Islamic Republic of Iran? So now, before I show you this footage that I mentioned at the outset, I want to discuss some big picture issues. And first of all, I'm going to start by referring to a comment on X that I saw from a lawyer whom I know, a Canadian human rights lawyer. He has done some good work in the past. I believe him to be anti-Zionist, but he is, I would say, relatively mainstream in Canada. And I may have met him personally at some point or spoken to him in a Zoom call at some point, but I don't really know him that well. I know of him. And generally speaking, he has done good work as a human rights lawyer. So he sent me, and just as a matter of professional courtesy, and because I think he has done some good work as a human rights lawyer, I'm not going to name him. I'm not interested in embarrassing the guy. I'm referring to him only because it's a good launching point for this discussion, which is this issue that I want to take up with you. And so he said to me, he started it off by coming on to my X feed and replying to a post that I put out about something extraordinary I had seen here in Iran. And his reply was something along the lines of, I don't know why you are honoring that man. And by that man, he clearly meant the martyr Imam Khamenei. And so this brings me to the whole question of what my opinion of Imam Khamenei is. And let me tell you that I have been asked that question. I've done probably about 24 interviews here for a variety of Iranian media outlets and some foreign media outlets. I've been on national television in Iran on several occasions, could be well over 10 or 15 at this point, plus I've been quoted in the online media. And again during the past week, I have been asked what I think of Imam Khamenei. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I told the Iranian media, which is my honest response. I would never give anything but an honest response to this question. First of all, for virtually my entire life, adult life, I have heard nothing but unrelenting criticism, negativity, and bombast about Imam Khamenei and the Islamic Republic of Iran. And of course, that has come overwhelmingly from Western governments and from Western corporate media. And also, it should be said, some mainstream Western human rights organizations like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch. Now, I attach absolutely no weight whatsoever, and this is what I said to I'm telling you exactly what I told the Iranian media. I have learned in the course of my life to attach zero weight to what the Western corporate media and Western governments say about any government that refuses to be a vassal of Washington. And there's no question that the Iranian government refuses to be a vassal of Washington. Whether they're talking about Venezuela, the Russian Federation, China, North Korea, Yemen, you name it. I don't give a damn. I couldn't care less. A rat's ass is what I attach that much weight and importance to the opinions of Western governments and corporate media about governments around the world that refuse to be vassals of Washington. That's number one. Now, that doesn't mean that I automatically think these governments are good actors. Just because I don't attach weight to their criticisms doesn't mean I think that they are saintly or virtuous or that they deserve my praise. But all I'm saying is I come to the whole question with an open mind, notwithstanding the fact that I have been told all of these terrible things about the government of the Islamic Republic. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I know precious little objective information about the life of Imam Khamenei. Very, very little. I've learned a good bit on this trip, but still it's just a small, tiny fraction of the arc of this man's life that I've become familiar with. And I'm really not in a position to make any broad, sweeping, confident pronouncements about what sort of individual he was. And again, this is exactly what I said to the Iranian media. Now, here's what I do know. Here's what I can say with a high degree of confidence. First of all, he was not murdered along with members of his immediate family by the United States and Israel because of human rights violations or concerns about democracy or international legal violations or threats of Iran developing a nuclear weapon. That's all bullocks. That had nothing to do with why they murdered him. They murdered him and his close family members because he refused to be a vassal of Washington. It's as simple as that. He refused to sell out his people and hand over the treasures of this wealthy, rich nation, 5,000-year-old civilization, to control by the depraved pedophiles in Washington and Tel Aviv, and for that he paid with his life. That is a certainty. We can say this with the utmost confidence because of the long and sordid record of Western governments of lying about respect for international law and human rights, and eliminating, killing, torturing, persecuting people in leadership positions in the non-Western world in particular who refuse to be vassals of Washington. And just the fact that they killed him at the same time as the Israelis and the Americans were carrying out the most in-your-face, audacious genocide in human history, that tells you all you need to know about their real motivation for killing this man. What else do I know about Imam Khamenei? I know that he was, in effect, the leader of the most courageous and effective resistance movement, and by resistance I mean resistance to Western hegemony, in the world today, and the one that has made by far the greatest sacrifices in the world today. He was the leader of that movement, certainly a leader of that movement. And the third thing I know about Imam Khamenei is that he could have easily sold out his people if he had wanted to. It would have been the easiest thing in the world for him to do what, for example, the Arab autocrats have done, or what the European vassals of Washington have done. How they've sold out their people and their countries, these traitors, time and time again, in order to enrich themselves and empower themselves and glorify themselves and satisfy their gigantic egos by putting themselves in positions of power and having microphones constantly shoved in their mouths, and living in palatial prime ministerial and presidential residences and eating filet mignon and foie gras and sipping on the finest wine and champagne, all at taxpayer expense. He could have gone down that path, like so many before him, but he said no. He refused, and that's why they killed him. And for that reason alone, I am fully prepared to honor this man. I don't know what else he may or may not have done in his life that was virtuous or evil. I'm not in a position to evaluate the vast majority of his life, but I can say those things with confidence, and for that reason alone, he does deserve deep respect on the part of people all around the world, at least those who care about justice, sovereignty of nations, equality, and anti-imperialism. Now, again, this is not in some way, shape, or form an endorsement of everything he has ever said or done. Do not take this as such a statement. I simply don't know enough about the man's life in order to go any further than I've just gone. And I also want to say that the supposition that by coming here, and this is the very first time I've actually said on my program what I think of Ali Khamenei. I've said it on Iranian television this week many times because I was constantly asked the question. But up until now, all I've been doing on my own platform is reporting what I'm seeing. That's it, reporting what I'm seeing. Because I think it's very important that people understand what tens of millions of Iranians actually think about Imam Khamenei. Which brings me to the whole subject of public opinion in this country. Now, I want to just point out that it is customary in the West that we attach in the public discourse on a daily basis enormous weight to public opinion polls offered up by corporate entities, most of which are operated for a profit, to guide us in our understanding of how the public views various issues of importance. Okay, we rely upon these polls every single day. And these polls, in broad strokes, how they work is the polling firm will go and pick a statistically significant sample, randomly selected sample of people from a targeted population, whose opinion they want to assess. And they'll ask them a question and they'll get an answer. Usually it's done, it can be done in person, but more often than not nowadays it's done electronically, it's done by telephone. So they're not even face to face. And they then extrapolate from the answers that they receive from this tiny little sample to the broader population. And based upon a statistical formulation, they'll come out with the conclusion that this represents public opinion within the targeted population, within a certain range, plus or minus 2% or plus or minus 3%. And we routinely rely upon these polls. Now, I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't rely upon these polls. I think there are a lot of legitimate questions about the accuracy of polls in the West for a whole variety of reasons. All I'm going to say is this, the people who are answering these questions in these polls, there's no cost to them of lying. There's absolutely no cost to them of lying. It's not like, they'll be tried for perjury if they are determined to have lied to the pollster. All they got to do is basically, type an answer onto a keyboard or say yes or no in a conversation on the telephone. They may or may not be telling the truth. They may or may not feel strongly about the answer that they give. They may just feel that way on that particular day, but the next day they have a completely different view about the question that was put to them. So it might be just some kind of transitory feeling that they express to the pollster, which doesn't really tell you much about the general views within the population. But the bottom line is here, the people who respond to these polls, there's no cost to them of lying or offering up some answer that is ill-considered, is just a fleeting impression or feeling that they have. There's no cost. Now let's compare this to what I witnessed here this week. What I witnessed here this week was millions of people. This is what I saw with my own eyes, okay? This is not the total number, because I was at these funeral processions and these prayer gatherings in massive mosques only for a few hours at a time. The actual events took place for far more time than I was physically present. But while I was there, 3 days in Tehran and 2 days in Mashhad, I saw millions of people with my own eyes, cumulatively over that period of time. The number is certainly in the tens of millions. According to the Iranian government, it's somewhere between 40 and 43 million people in total. They came to this conclusion, they say, using a variety of methods, including the number of passengers using the metro system in Tehran. They looked at cell phone activity. They looked at bank card activity, things of that nature. In addition, there was extensive aerial footage, helicopters overhead, drone footage, and so forth. So they say they looked at a variety of sources, and it was 40 to 43 million, which would make it by far the largest funeral in recorded history. I can't verify. I haven't seen the data that they rely upon. They only described in broad terms how they came to this conclusion. But what I can say is that I myself saw millions of people in the streets grieving the passing of, and I walked among them. I wasn't at great distance. I walked among them every time, listened to them, and on some occasions actually spoke to them and interviewed them. And I myself saw millions of people in the relatively short time that I was actually in or around those funeral processions. So it seems to me a virtual certainty. And I didn't even see any of it. I was not present at all in Iraq, in Najaf or Karbala, where there were millions of people, apparently. So I think it's safe to say that there were tens of millions of people, 20 million, I would say at least. And the number may be as high as 40. Now, Iran has a population in the range of about 93 million people. 93 million people, and the overwhelming majority of those people, I assure you, were Iranians. There were foreigners there, but they probably constituted less than 10%, I would estimate, of the, just based upon my personal interactions with people, less than 10% of the total number. So you are talking about a huge swath of the Iranian population. Is it a majority? No. But it is a large segment of the Iranian population. It is at a bare minimum, a very large minority of the Iranian population. And this act of support, this expression of support, had a cost. The cost was you actually had to go out in public in searing heat at a time when your country was being bombed by the child-murdering Trump regime, and spend hours of your time, and not just actually there at the procession, getting to it was quite a chore. I saw people walking in the blazing heat kilometers from and to their residences just to get to the location of the funeral procession. So you may say this is not an enormous cost, but it is a cost. It's a hell of a lot bigger cost than the cost that one must pay to answer a pollster over the telephone or via your computer. Okay, so what am I saying here? I'm saying to you that I think that the evidence that I witnessed of support for the martyred supreme leader of Iran with my own eyes, and I heard with my own ears, is much more weighty than a poll. Because of the fact that I literally saw these people out there in conditions that exposed them to risk, in conditions that required them to expend a significant amount of their time during a period of considerable hardship for this country. And I saw them cry, I saw them shout, I saw them and heard them demand justice. To me, this is much more compelling than some nameless individual whom some for-profit or not-for-profit pollster says gave a particular answer in a survey that took a few seconds for them to fill out, with there being no risk, no cost to them whatsoever of misrepresenting their position or offering up some view that was just some transitory, fleeting opinion that they happened to have in that particular moment. Okay, this is probably, in my view, the most compelling, credible evidence you could have of support for a political or religious figure. The fact that people come out, spend hours of their time in very harsh weather conditions at a time when their country is being bombed by the most destructive, maniacal, evil power that the world has ever seen, that to me is the most compelling evidence of support that you could possibly have. Now, again, does this mean the majority of the Iranian population feels this way about Imam Khamenei? I don't know. I can't say that with a high level of confidence. It may well be, but I can only tell you about what I saw with my own eyes. And what I saw with my own eyes completely undermines the Western narrative. The Western narrative being that only a tiny fanatical fringe of the population supports Imam Khamenei, or supported him and support the Islamic Republic, and if they are given any kind of an opportunity to overthrow them and rid themselves of this so-called regime, they will do it in a heartbeat and happily replace it with some regime that is well disposed towards Washington and the West generally. That's the narrative. Well, what we saw this week, my friends, blows that narrative out of the water, and that is why I came here. My message to that lawyer who put that comment out there, even though I do, for the reasons I've articulated, I respect what Imam Khamenei did in his life. That's not, again, an endorsement of everything he ever did. I don't know enough to give an endorsement of everything he ever did. And if I did have a fulsome view about his life or knowledge about his life, I may have some very serious criticisms to offer, but I don't. So it so happens, for the reasons I've articulated, that I do think he merits our respect, but that's not why I came here. I didn't come here to honor him or anyone else. I came here to discover whether, in fact, the Western narrative about the Islamic Republic of Iran is true. And we can now say, to my mind, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that it's complete and utter bollocks. You may not like it. You may think that sucks. You may detest the Islamic Republic of Iran. But there are tens of millions of people here in this country who support the Islamic Republic of Iran, who respected or even revered the supreme leader, the martyred supreme leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And that is a reality that we have to deal with. If you want to have an intelligent, humane foreign policy, you have to deal in reality. You don't deal with the world as you wish it to be. You deal with the world as it is. And any politician out there that is qualified to hold public office will know this. And if you don't know this, then you've got no goddamn business holding public office. You should be run out of town, run out of the Capitol, run out of the halls of power, because you are going to lead us down the path to misery and destruction by pursuing a foreign policy that is based upon your own personal fantasies and your own personal wish list, rather than on the obvious, demonstrable facts of this world. So that's why I came here. Now, there will be people out there, bad faith actors, who will want to insinuate, this happens every single time I come to a country like this and provide this kind of coverage, factual coverage, in a country that is being targeted by these depraved criminals from the West. I get accused of having some monetary motivation for doing this. So I'm just going to lay it out there. I haven't been paid a dime by anybody to do this, subject to one qualification, which I'm going to explain to you in a moment. Not only have I not been compensated for my time in reporting here, it's been, believe me, a full-time job. There's been no partying going on here, okay? This has been hard work every day for the 8 days that I've been here, And it's been very uncomfortable work, frankly, because of the heat, and we spend so much time out in the blazing hot sun photographing these events and speaking to people in the streets. It has not been what I would call a gay old time. It has been really hard, grueling work, and I've not been paid a dime for it. And in addition, I've paid my own expenses, as I do on all of these trips. Every single time I've gone to Lebanon, every time I've gone to Palestine, every time I've come to Iran, I have paid my own expenses, and I have not been compensated a dime for my work, subject to this one qualification. The qualification is that my YouTube channel, Reason to Resist, is monetized. And in addition, some people do make donations to our channel. And by the way, if you're interested in doing that, look at the description to this video. I very rarely, by the way, ask for donations. I almost never do it. But since I'm on the subject of donations, if you are interested in donating and helping us to do this work and expand our on-the-ground coverage, we do encourage you to make donations, and you can find out how to do that by looking at the description to this video. But let me assure you that since we founded this channel about 2 years ago, a little less than 2 years ago, we have not generated enough money from monetization payments and donations to cover our expenses. And here I'm talking about all the expenses, because of course the traveling expenses when we do on-the-ground reporting is just part of our expenses. We have expenses related to editing. We have staff who does some of our editing. We have various types of subscriptions and software, and we have to buy computer equipment, photographic equipment, and so forth. So I have an office that I use in Montreal strictly for the purpose of doing reports for Reason to Resist. I have to pay a rent for that office. So when you add it all up, from the time we founded Reason to Resist a little less than 2 years ago, it exceeds the money we have received from monetization and from donations. So this has actually cost me money. Okay, not only do I not get paid for doing what is in effect a full-time job, some weeks it's more than a full-time job, and it involves considerable personal risk when I come to war zones, as I have this week. Not only am I not paid, but I've actually had to dole some money out of my own pocket in order to do this work. So look, that doesn't mean that everything that I report is correct. I try to be as accurate as possible. It doesn't mean that all of my opinions are sound opinions. I try to have good opinions, well-reasoned opinions that are based upon evidence. You may want to criticize the substance of what I've had to say in some report or another, but don't tell me that I have some ulterior motive for doing this work, motherfucker. Okay, I got no ulterior motive. In fact, what I just told you, how many people who do journalism can say this? What I just told you, that they're not paid for the work that they do, and that they actually have to dole money out of their pockets to do it, even when they are putting their lives on the line to do that work. So I'm saying all of this for one simple reason. All the haters out there who are going to want to attack my bona fides and claim that I have some personal gain to accrue as a result of doing this work, that I'm somehow, have been incentivized to be an agent of the regime in Iran, go to hell, all of you. Okay, you people, I hardly know anybody at all, particularly amongst this population of haters, who would be willing to do the work that I have been doing for nearly the past 2 years with no compensation, and also to dole out money out of their own pocket, even when doing that work has entailed significant personal risk. I don't know that any of these people who criticize me have ever done such a thing, and I really doubt they ever have or ever will. So to hell with all of you haters out there. Now, with that, I think I've covered off pretty much everything I wanted to say, except actually 2 items before I show you this footage I mentioned at the outset. Number one, in one of the speeches I was asked to give here, I mentioned at the very outset of the speech a wonderful documentary called Alger, Les Mecs des Révolutionnaires. It was produced, I think, in 2017 by a very talented documentary filmmaker from Algeria. I may get his name wrong here, but as I recall, his name was Ben Salama, something along those lines, and I do apologize to him if I've mispronounced his name. In any case, What is this documentary about? This documentary is about, and by the way, if you don't speak French, the title means Algiers, the Mecca of revolutionaries. And so this documentary is about the period, the few years following Algeria's winning of independence in a brutal war in which the savages in the French regime murdered millions of Algerians because they simply wanted to be sovereign and to have their own country and to rid themselves of this colonial pestilence that had afflicted them for so long. So they finally achieved independence in 1962, and for a number of years, particularly when a leader by the name of Ben Bella was in power in Algeria, Algiers, the capital of Algeria, did actually serve as the Mecca of revolutionaries. It was frequented by people like Malcolm X, members of the Black Panthers, Nelson Mandela, Patrice Lumumba, Fidel Castro, Che Guevara, and many other leading figures from revolutionary movements around the world. And unfortunately, eventually, for a variety of reasons which are discussed in some detail in that documentary, which I've watched several times and I highly commend it to you, Algiers ceased to play that role. Well, what I told people in my speech today, earlier this week, when I talked about this documentary, is that today the Mecca of revolutionaries is right here, Tehran. Tehran is and should be the place on which revolutionaries around the world converge in order to discuss, cooperate, collaborate in the liberation of oppressed peoples all around this world by any and all means necessary. That's what it should be, that's what it can be, and I think that that's what it very much has become. And it's interesting to me that the predecessor Mecca of revolutionaries was also from a predominantly Muslim country, like Iran is. What significance you take from that, I leave it to you to decide. In any case, the other thing I want to say to you before I show you this footage share with you, is that when I was walking back on the night that they buried the martyred Imam Khamenei at the spectacular Imam Reza shrine. Really, the footage you're about to see, I think, will give you some sense of its extraordinary beauty. As I was walking back to my hotel that night, a woman, an Iranian woman, stopped me in the street. She saw that I was talking into my camera in English and that I was wearing a badge, a journalist's identification. And she spoke impeccable English, but she was clearly Iranian. She had an accent. And she said to me, first of all, that she couldn't thank me enough for coming to her country and telling the West the truth about Iran. And then she looked into my camera, which I stupidly thought was turned on, but it wasn't. And she said to me, look all around me. And she was surrounded, of course, by masses of people mourning the martyred Ali Khamenei. She said, this is Iran. This is the real Iran. And then she pointed at herself. She said, I am not AI. I'm a real human being, and I'm speaking to you here from Iran today, and this is Iran. So with that, let me turn over to you the footage that I shot first of the interior of the Imam Reza shrine. The Imam Reza shrine, this is for the 8th Imam of the Shia faith, and the only one who is buried in Iran. And when I was there, I was told that, people who are faithful Shia members of our entourage, that millions of people, tens of millions of people come to the shrine every year. Oftentimes, it's almost like the shrine of last hope. They come when all else has failed. They're on the verge of bankruptcy. They have some terminal illness. Their marriage has broken down. The person that they love deeply has abandoned them. They come to this shrine to be saved and to be revived and to find hope. And I was told many a story while I was there about miracles that they tell me had happened when people came to the shrine seeking assistance in their hour of need from Imam Reza. In any case, that may, this is a belief that is widely shared amongst the Shia here. that this shrine does serve that purpose, and that may help you to understand why you're about to see so much emotion amongst the faithful who were there at the time when I visited. And then afterwards, as I say, you'll see a brief report from the residents of the former residents of the martyred Imam Khamenei in the 10 years prior to the Islamic Revolution. Thank you very much for watching our coverage from Iran during the past 8 days. For me personally, even if, of course, I hope very, very deeply that our reporting has enlightened you. That is the primary motivation for our coming here and doing what we do. But even if, and I would be very saddened if this were true, we didn't actually enlighten a single human being on this planet by means of our reporting during the past week, I still will feel with all my heart and soul that coming here was eminently worth it, because this was what I saw during this week, one of the most marvelous experiences of my life. I've never seen anything like it, and I doubt I ever will again. This is where the martyred Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei has been entombed. Masses of people who have come to see his final resting place. That is the tomb of Imam Reza. Here, this is where they have placed the martyred Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. It's not open to the public yet, so you can see it's very, very close to the tomb of Imam Reza, which is a sign of great respect. Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. Good day, everybody. It's Dimitri Lascaris coming to you from Mashhad, Iran on July 8th, 2026. I'm standing in the courtyard of what used to be the residence of the martyred Supreme Leader of Iran, Ali Khamenei. We as in the foreign journalists in our entourage, were offered the opportunity to come here and to see how he lived. This man, in his 30s, we were told, lived in this house for about 10 years, the 10 years previous to the Islamic Revolution in 1979. And we're going to share with you some footage and commentary from a local cleric who is familiar with the history of this residence. And you'll see as we approach what used to be the Supreme Leader's residence and as we tour the interior that it's very simple, very austere residence. And frankly, if we hadn't been told that this was formerly the residence of the Supreme Leader, we wouldn't have recognized it from the street. And as soon as I saw it, I thought to myself, I tried to imagine what, let's say, some Trumpian figure from the halls of power in the West would want his or her former residence to look like. I suspect it would be a lot more conspicuous and lavish than what we found here today. In any case, let's have a closer look at the exterior and in the interior and hear from the cleric who guided us about the history of this place.
In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, I extend my deepest condolences on the occasion of Muharram and also on the occasion of martyrdom of Iran's Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei.
محله که درش قرار داریم محله سرشور مشهد از محلات قدیمی مشهد است.
This is an old neighborhood in Mashhad. It's called Sarshur.
و این میلان 27 سرشور است.
And this is Milan 27, Milan 27.
چون اینجا تعداد زیادی از علما در این کوچه ساکن بودن به عنوان کوچه علما معروفند.
This is well known as ulama. Ulama or scholars, that's right, street. There were lots of Islamic scholars here living in this alley.
سال 1346 شمسی رهبر شهیدمون آیت الله سید علی خامنه‌ای با کمک پدرش، پدرخانم و پدرخانم میتونم بگین از تجار بودن و سرمایه خودش داشته یک قطعه زمین به متراژ 500 متر مربع در این مینا میخرن.
In the year 1346 Iranian calendar, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, purchased a 500-meter land here by the help of his father and his father-in-law. His father-in-law was one of the merchants of that time.
بعد چون پول ساخت نداشته به یک آدمی که سازنده ساختمون بوده 250 متر به او که دو طبقه برای خودش بسازه، 250 متر برای خودش، برای خود آقا که دو تا 250 متر تقسیم میکنه، 250 متر بسازه برای خودش بابت زمین رایگان، 250 متر برای خود آقا.
The land which he had the land which he had purchased was 500 meters, but because he hadn't enough money to build the place, he divides it two parts. He gives 250 meter of the land to someone else to build a two-store building and دو طبقه برای اون دو طبقه برای
آره.
4-store building, 2-store.
ویلایی ساخته.
Yeah, that's right. For supreme leader and 2-store for the constructor.
آره. یه طبقه برای اون نه
4 طبقه.
الان خدمتش توضیح میدم اونجا. دو طبقه 500 متر زمین بوده، دو تا 250 متر تقسیم بده. دو تا 250. آره. کنار هم الان توضیح میده. بعد از سال
Two-story building, yeah.
از سال 1347 که خانه به بهره برداری میرسه تا سال 57 که خونه انقلاب پیروز میشه همین منزل ساکن بوده.
Okay, Iran's supreme leader used to live here up until the victory of revolution in 1979.
So it's about 1967 to 1977. Okay.
79.
نکته بعدی قبل از خرید و ساخته خونه 4 منزل مستاجر بوده. 4-5 منزل چند ساله مستاجر بوده.
He had lived in rented houses, 4 rented houses before purchasing this land.
نکته‌ای که من شما رو اینجا نگه داشتم این بود این پشت سری تصویر بگیرن. اینجا مغازه سوپرمارکتی بوده. این مغازه سوپرمارکتی و این سوپرمارکتی مأمور ساواک بوده. این مأمور ساواک بوده.
Government intelligence force of Shah. Okay, the supermarket was a cover, and he was the owner was the intelligent agent.
و تمام رفت آمدهای مبارزین، انقلابی‌ها، شهید مطهری، شهید بهشتی، خود دکتر سروش، هر کسی می اومده ایشون گزارش میداده به ساواک.
The guy reported all the visits that were taking place here. Shahid Beheshti, martyred Beheshti, martyred Motahari, revolutionary figures of that time.
بعدی که رهبری آیت الله سید علی خامنه‌ای متوجه میشه اینشون ساواکه، منزلی که چون منزلش دو نقشه مهمانان از یه در می آورد از در دیگه خارج میکرد یا از در دیگه میومد در دیگه خارج میکرد که اصطلاحاً رد گم کنی هم میکرده آقا هم. یعنی باشون بادی و آقا از این سوپرمارکتی بعضی موقع بچه‌ها رو مقصود خرید کنه که سرشون به خرید گرم بشه نفهمه شما اومدی تو خونه‌اش رفتی.
Okay, well then Ayatollah Khamenei at that time finds out that he's a secret agent. He has a plan that when he receives guests, he sends them out from the other door,
Back door.
From the back door, and also sometimes when he has guests, he sends his children to do some shoppings from there in order to keep them busy and they can have their meetings freely. Yes.
خب بفهمین بریم داخل تا بهتون
This was the hall, and then these two blocks next to each other are 500 square meters. And well, the one we have divided 2 parts. This belongs to the leader. This building belongs to the leader.
از اینجا به بعد آقای داوری توضیح بدم که خدمت شما بشه بریم داخل. بفهم داخل که من توضیح بدم. چرا توضیح کنم؟ اینجا بگیم دو تا در بوده.
You know, it's remarkable how simple this has remained. You know, they haven't turned it into like a Trumpian shrine to his greatness.
Theme park.
Yeah, exactly.
Very austere.
Yeah. You wouldn't even know it if you weren't led here by knowledgeable people.
They all have these gardens, but you can't see from the street.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
This is suddenly peaceful. After you.
من مسلم اوشنگی ام خدمت شما در حرم حضرت رضا خان مسجد اداره اطلاعاتی در خانه حرم اینجا خدمتی بیت پشت اینجا سازمانی نزدیک همه انسانی با عشق و دل و افتخاری میاد کار میکنم. خیلی خوش آمدید. بگیم که من و منزلی که الان تشریف آوردین منزلی بوده که مقام معظم رهبری شهیدمون از سال 1347 تا 57 اینجا ساکن بودن.
Warm welcome to all of you. Well, the place that you are right now belongs to the martyred supreme leader, and he has been living here for 10 years till 1979.
این درختانی که می‌بینید او دو تا درخت کلام نشون میدن. اون درختی که به دیوار چسبیده و چی می‌گن؟
درخت انجیر که اینجا هست و این گیاهی که چسبیده به دیوار اینا رو همون زمان خود حضرت آیت الله خامنه‌ای هستن.
You see growing on the wall that's been planted by the supreme leader.
انجیر خود آقا کاشته.
Yeah, there's also the fig tree has been planted by the martyred supreme leader.
بعد نکته بعدی بفرمایید که در ضبط خاطرات رهبر شهید که دفتر حفظ نشر مقام معظم رهبری داشته سال 92 رسیدن به خاطراتشون به سال 46 و 47 که در اونجا آقا میفرمایند که من همچین منزلی بوده و همچین خونه‌ای داشتم. اونجا سال 92 بعدش که با این توضیح که من بدم خدمت همکاران بگیم که سال 57 که آقا مشرف بعد انقلاب پیروز شد رفت تهران این خونه رو فروختن به برادرشون سید علی خامنه‌ای.
Okay, after the Islamic Revolution, when Islamic Revolution was victorious, the supreme leader sold this property to his brother.
این خونه دو تا در داشته، یه دری که از این سمت اومدید، یه در ورودی اینجا، چون انقلابیون رفت آمد داشتن اینجا و خیلی وقتها ماموران ساوا که در واقع کنترل میکردن این خونه رو برای اینکه این کنترل اتفاق نیفته گاهی اوقات افرادی که از این در می اومدن، افراد خاصی که می اومدن از در اون سمت خارج میشدن که خیلی رفت آمده قابل کنترل نباشه.
As already told, there are two doors for this building that sometimes they used one for entrance, the other for exit, in order to control the visitors who were coming here, the revolutionaries who were coming here.
یه سری از دستگیری‌های رهبری هم در اون دوران مبارزه بر علیه رژیم پهلوی در همین خونه اتفاق افتاده. حالا بگید
Okay, supreme leader was arrested several times in this place.
مثلا یک سال مونده به پیروزی انقلاب آذر ماه در پاییز ماموران پهلوی میان و نیمه شبی در میزنن، یعنی بعضان صبح در میزنن و آقا که در رو با تأخیر باز میکنن، رهبری در رو با تأخیر باز میکنن، اینا عصبانی میشن، ضربه به پای
In 1978, 1 year prior to Islamic Revolution victory, the intelligence of Shah one midnight come here and they banged the door. When martyred supreme leader actually opens the door a bit late, they forcefully open the door and kick his leg.
خب رهبری این خاطرات که تعریف میکنه میگن من زندان و اذیت‌های زندان رو قبلا تجربه کرده بودم ولی این سرصداها باعث شده بود که پسر من و همسر من بیدار میشن، پسر بزرگم آقا مصطفی و این صحنه رو که میبینن گریه میکنن و ناراحت میشن. رهبری میگن من از نه از بابت این ضربه، بالاخره من مبارز بودم دیده بودم ولی اینکه فرزندم ناراحت شد یه خورده مکدر شدم خاطر آزرده شد.
Yes, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei at that night was resented because his family was there. They woke up because of the harsh voice that the agents made, and Supreme Leader actually was a little bit anxious and sad because of what happened.
مهمونهای این خونه بعد از این جریان آقا حدود 290 روز تبدیل میشن به ایران شهر که منطقه در نور شرق ایران.
After when he was arrested at that time, well, he was sent to exile for 260 days. For 290 days, he was sent to exile to Iran, Shah's house, east of Iran. You can comment?
مهمون هایی که می اومدن تو این خونه برای اینکه مزاحم خانواده رهبری نباشن از این مسیر می اومدن سمت اتاق
ببخشید میشه چون تعداد زیاده همزمان همه نمیتونن توضیحات رو بدید راجع به اتاقای مختلف که بعداً آزادانه خودشون بچرخن.
باش.
راجع به اتاقای مختلف
خیلی خب من توضیح کلی میخوام از خانم سمت ولی از اینجا اگر ایران بکنم بعد دوباره
نمیدونم برگردم. خب دوباره توضیح کلی اینجا چیه اینجا چیه اینجا چیه اینجا چیه بگید.
یه توضیح کلی من خدمتتون عرض کنم. اتاق بغل اتاق کتابخونه هست. یه ویژگی که ایشون داشتن که علاقه‌مند به کتاب بودن، در کنار کتاب‌های فقهی و اصولی که مربوط به اسلام هست، ایشون کتابخونه پویا بوده، یعنی کتاب می‌دادن و بخشی از کتاب‌های آبره‌ای هست. بخش زیادی از کتاب‌های
So we are now in the basement of what used to be the home of Ali Khamenei in the 10 years leading up to the revolution, the Islamic Revolution, and they've converted this into a sort of mini archive to get a sense of the trajectory of his life. These documents are from criminal proceedings that were brought against the martyred supreme leader when he was a cleric in the pre-revolutionary years. So these proceedings would have been brought against him by the authorities of the Shah.
Everybody come for a moment.